one of our youngest guests will have one of the strongest messages. Who is she? You'll meet her coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Embassy Suites Resort at Kingston Plantation, home of the 13th Annual American Heart Ball. We're focused on cardiovascular disease, and we're visiting with a Socastee High School senior, Ashlyn Clark.
Hi, how are
Good
you?
morning, Ashlyn.
Good to see you.
Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
This is very exciting to have an opportunity to discuss something very serious, not only to you, but to so many folks of all ages.
Right, it's the #1 killer in the nation.
The #1 killer, cardiovascular disease and strokes,
Yes, sir.
impact a ton of folks. I think it's
Right.
the #3 killer.
Number 3, exactly.
Right. Had you thought about cardiovascular disease and strokes at an early age, or is this something you...
No, definitely not. I mean, everyone sits back and says, that's not going to happen to me, when really, in women especially, it kills 1 out of every 2 women. So it's definitely something that everybody needs to take a step back and look at. It can happen to anyone.
And it really also has a big impact on children. A lot of folks think
Right.
of it just being an older person's disease, or even you now in this as a teenager.
Yes, sir.
But the #1 birth defect,
Right.
cardiovascular.
I was born with a heart defect, so they didn't find it until I was 17, but it affects children as well as adults.
This was something you were born with.
Right. And I was born with it. They found it when I was 17, and I went to the doctor, and he looked at my heart, and he heard a heart murmur, which they should have heard when I was a baby, but they didn't. And when he found it when I was 17, he sent me to get an echocardiogram. And when I had my echocardiogram, they found a tiny hole in my heart, as well as something called a canal defect, which is actually where the 4 chambers meet in your heart. I was missing that tissue right there that separates the 4 chambers.
The 4 chambers that meet in the heart.
Right.
And there's some tissue that connects them.
Yes, sir.
And you were missing the tissue all the way around?
I was missing the tissue, so my heart was almost like a wash machine. It went in a circle. It didn't go to each chamber the way it was supposed to.
But that's one of only 2 parts of the defect. You said the other one was an actual hole.
I had a hole in between 2 of the other chambers, the top chambers. I had a hole there, and then I also had another tiny hole at the bottom, in between the 2 bottom chambers. That one wasn't as significant as the other one.
And you said this is potentially something that folks notice at birth, or doctors will notice
Right.
early on, or their tests that doctors do normally?
Well, actually, some babies are born blue. Usually, when they have the kind of defect that I had, they're born blue. And I wasn't. I looked completely normal, so they didn't think anything was going on. And I started getting sick, and I was checked for mono several times when
When you were younger?
When I was 16 and 17.
Oh, wow. Huh.
And then my feet, when I was dancing and working out, they started turning blue. So those were just some of the signs that something was going on with my heart.
When you say blue, do you mean like your top there, that color blue, or what?
Yeah, exactly. Like
kidding.
almost purple, like somebody had beaten them with a hammer or something. It was pretty rough.
My Lord, but was the sensitivity there in the feet? I mean, could you feel something, or was it just look?
My feet were very cold to the touch, but other than that, they didn't feel any different. And maybe sometimes they would fall asleep, but I thought that was just something everybody went through.
Yeah.
I was born with this, so I never really realized the way I felt was different from everyone else.
But the blueness wasn't occurring from birth to age 16. It was principally just 16 and 17.
Right.
Right.
It only happened the 2 years before I had my surgery, so I guess that's when my heart really started taking a toll on my body.
Now, was this because you were in a lot of, you talked about dancing and working out?
Yes, sir.
Or is that something you've been doing for a long time?
I've actually taken dance for 14 years.
Oh, boy.
And I'm also a cheerleader, a varsity cheerleader at Socastee High School. I was on a competition squad, so I have a lot of activities, and I was working out 2-3 hours a day, 6-7 days a week. So
Boy.
it took a while for me to realize. I think the fact that I was so active kept me from being sicker, or more sick than I would have been.
Now, you talk about, are these pretty common in children that have congenital heart defects? I mean, are these the lack of the tissue there between the chambers and the heart, or even the hole in the heart? That's something you hear about
Holes in the heart are actually pretty common, but usually as the child grows, the hole fills in. But mine never filled in. So.
Really?
But I think it didn't fill in because it was making up for the other defects. And then on top of that, I also had a leaky mitral valve. So all of that together kind of
These
worked
terms
against
that
me.
you really knew nothing about a couple of years ago.
No, not at all. I would have
hadn't
never
heard any of them or
Definitely
even thought
not.
about them. I mean, who hears them? You said a mitral valve or
Mitral valve.
Mitral valve.
Right.
Yeah, I mean that's could even spell it.
At 17 years old, you don't think you're gonna have a heart defect, you know. So I can sit around with my grandparents and talk about our heart problems. We can kind of like we're both part of the Zipper Club, so.
Oh yeah, wow, the Zipper Club. That's a serious thing that probably tough for many folks to laugh about your age because they can't even imagine it. But
Right.
of all ages, that's a big deal. When you say the Zipper Club, for viewers who may not be familiar with that, that means
Everyone who has had open heart surgery has a scar on their chest, so they refer to that as the zipper. So we're part of the Zipper Club.
Wow, golly. Now, I understand this is something that even though you went through extensive surgery and obviously one of the best surgeons in the country, this may not be entirely complete. Is that right?
I might have to have surgery again. They say it could be 2 years from now or 10 years from now, but my mitral valve is still leaking. He tried to repair it 3 times, and the outcome was the same each time. So in a couple years, I'll have to have my valve replaced.
So that'll require a full reopening and to get back in there to get. There's certain surgeries that can be done that don't require. I mean, that a cardiologist could do rather than seeing them.
It's amazing what they can do now. They can actually go in through your leg and repair a hole in your heart. But I'm not exactly sure about the valve. I think those always end up with open heart surgery.
Is that scary at all?
Well, at first, when I first had my surgery, I was a little scared. I was more worried about the scar, you know, as a 17-year-old, you know. I don't want to have a scar on my chest and look like my grandparents, but, you know. But now that I'm here and it's great. I cherish the scar because it's the reason I'm still here today.
Great words. You know, of course, we think about events like the Heart Ball, which will be here on February 17th, and in a night like that, trying to raise almost $500,000, you wonder about where those dollars go or how you can make a difference. But even just getting the word out is a big step. If you can't be an attendee at the Heart Ball that night, if you don't want to rent a tux or get a beautiful dress or spend $175 on a ticket, there's still volunteer needs. I understand you're helping out that night.
Yes, sir. I'll be there. It starts at 6 and it ends at 12. And there's also other ways besides going to the Heart Ball you can help raise money. There's the jump rope for the heart. There's also the Heart Walk.
Yeah.
And among many other things that you can get involved in. You can even just make donations if you would like to.
Oh, yeah, sure. That office phone number for viewers who aren't familiar, I think it's the 626-3939.
Yes, sir.
And I understand you're actually friends with Tammy Eves' daughter, I believe. Is that right? Did you all competed a little bit?
Miss Brooke Eves, yeah.
Brooke Eves, that's
right.
We're
best friends. We compete a little bit, but it's not really a competition between the two of us.
Are y'all really good friends? Y'all know each other well?
We're best friends, yes,
Really?
sir.
I don't think I knew that. You're at Sockasty High and she's at Myrtle Beach High.
Myrtle Beach, I know. We should be rivals, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And, of course, to think y'all being close friends and Brooke's mother having been with the Heart Association now 17 years.
Right.
Since before you were born, actually, 17 and a half years. Had you ever thought in talking to Brooke and seeing Brooke active in all the Heart Balls that you'd be dealing with the Heart Association in another way?
No, I would have never thought of that. And when they found out that I had a heart defect and that I was going to have open heart surgery, they actually held a benefit to raise money because we were going to Texas to help pay for some of our needs, like flying to Texas and for a place for my parents to stay. And Miss Tammy Eves and Brooke, they helped me a lot. They brought many people, let people know about the benefit, and they just got the word out there. They've been a big help.
That's tremendous. That's tremendous. That's tremendous. Whether it's nights like the Heart Ball, as you say, or special events like that, folks working to fight heart disease and stroke, it happens really to everyone. It does not discriminate. No,
it does not. And it can happen to anybody. I mean, it happened to me, so.
Let's talk a little bit about when you found that out and determined you were going to have surgery, the steps leading up to the procedure, and, of course, how you all determined. I think you said your surgery was in Houston?
Right.
Why'd you have to travel so far?
Well, the procedure that needed to be done on my heart, my family, we were going to go to MUSC, but we also have family that lives in Houston, Texas. So we kind of knew the right people, and we went there, and I wanted to be with the best. And my doctor there, he was amazing. He had actually he's in remission from leukemia.
Really?
Right.
You're a cardiologist?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
And he, not only knowing the patient's point of view, but the doctor's, he was a big help. Like, just talking to him made me feel more comfortable. And I mean, you want to feel comfortable with someone who's opening up your chest. So.
And of course, and he's a pediatric cardiologist.
Yes, sir.
For someone like that who's principally working with really
children.
young kids, with children, yeah,
Right.
as you say, children. I mean, you're probably considerably older than anyone he deals with.
Right. He actually had done a surgery on a man who was 31. Any congenital heart defect has to be done by a pediatric cardiologist. So
Really?
when I'm 81 years old, I'll still have to see a pediatric cardiologist.
Wow, that's interesting. You'd think as the body matures, the doctors who are principally working
Right.
with children may be a little off in dealing with, but I guess the heart doesn't change that much.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, the chest doesn't change that much. I mean, you
Right.
still have to open it up in the same way.
Right.
Wow, so this was this a special surgery for that doctor, or was this something that he'd done? You said he'd done almost the same procedure on a 31-year-old?
Right. This is actually something he's done several times. That's why we felt so comfortable going to him.
Mm-hmm.
So he had done that surgery many times. He actually had 2 surgeries that day. One was on me, and then the other one was on a 4-year-old girl named Angel. And that was actually her 3rd surgery. They found her defect when she was born.
Wow. Let's walk viewers through that, just leading up to that and the procedure itself, the time involved. Obviously, as you said, if he's doing 2 in one day,
Right.
it must not be a full day thing. But what about, you surely don't remember it
Right.
itself, but what folks told you was going on? And
I was actually in surgery for 8 hours.
Wow.
They went in, they prepped me for surgery, they opened my chest, and he fixed my valve 3 times, along with fixing my hole and the defect that I had.
You say he fixed it 3 times during that same 8 hours?
Right, he was trying to repair it, but every time he repaired it, it came out with the same outcome, so it's still leaky, so he's going to have to go in and replace it. They always try to repair it before they replace it.
Right.
Because it's much easier on the body not to have some kind of foreign thing within the heart.
Mm-hmm. Just like you hear your dentist talk about, it's better to try to fix this rather than putting in a new tooth.
Put something
right,
in.
right,
Exactly.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, that's critical. So an 8-hour procedure, and during the course of that time, a lot going on.
Right.
What did you have to do to prepare for it? Did you, I mean, when you were seeing your blue feet, or you said what were the other parts that became blue? Your hands?
My hands, my feet, and they would go numb from time to time. They were very cold and cool to the touch.
Did you have to stop all of your workout regimens and everything when you found this out, or did you? How did your life change?
Actually, as soon as I recovered fully, I went back to everything that I was doing. I actually competed with my cheerleading squad this year,
Really?
and I'm back to dancing. So I'm back to normal. I have what you would consider normal.
Yeah.
And it's been so much better. Like, I feel like a new person.
Really?
But some of the things that I was experiencing before my surgery would be, like, I couldn't catch my breath, and my feet were turning blue, and it was just a rough time. They tested me for mono several times.
Yeah. And what do you dance? That's ballet, or that's jazz, or tap, or
Everything from tap and jazz, ballet, lyrical, modern.
modern? Yeah.
I've been dancing for 14 years, so
I understand from your mother.
Competitively.
Otherwise, you're also in some pageants. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You've been in pageants in the past. And,
the most recent was the Miss Socastee High School pageant.
Oh, great.
Right.
How'd that go?
I got Miss Senior. A senior cannot win our pageant, but I received Miss Senior along with talent and interview and evening gown.
That's tremendous. Congratulations. You
Thank
said a
you.
senior can't win?
No, they cannot win our
because, like,
pageant.
I guess
They want you to be able to come back and represent the school through your
Right.
reign.
That's interesting. And I guess a senior won this year at Myrtle Beach.
Right.
My daughter and I actually went to see Brooke. Brooke invited us to come see her hand off the crown, and
Right.
Ryan Durant won.
Ryan Durant.
I think there in Myrtle Beach. Very interesting. Pageants are a fascinating thing. You know, I
They
think
are.
folks probably don't understand what all goes into a pageant.
They're very difficult. They're a lot harder than most people would think, especially if you're going to be up in front of a crowd of people. You also know how to hold yourself and speak.
Right. We were very impressed with Brooke and some of the answers. When one of the MC that night had asked her thoughts on the Miss America, some of the issues that she was going through with Donald Trump. Brooke handled herself much better, I think, than virtually anyone in the crowd could have imagined.
She told me she wasn't expecting that.
Really? Yeah. Well, she did great. She was tremendous. It's fascinating, of course, the folks that pageant works a lot. Have you been able to maintain your cheerleading, or is that something you had to curtail?
Well, I had to build my strength back, but along with that, I also had to build cardiovascular, like working out, running. Mm-hmm. All those things helped a lot in recovering.
So you can, is there anything that has changed physically? I mean, any things you can't do now? Or as you said, you feel like a new person. You may be able to do more.
The only thing that I was told I cannot do is scuba dive. So, I mean,
and why is that?
I think it has something to do with the pressure and also breathing in the oxygen. But other than that, I'm not exactly sure.
Right. You're just not going to mess with it. Yeah. Not push it. Yeah. Now, are you thinking about... you have plans for college? We got about 10 minutes. Plans for college?
I plan on attending Coastal, and I'm thinking about looking at the criminology and psychology.
Really?
Right.
That's interesting. Sheriff Thompson will be with us tomorrow morning. Maybe you want to come back and check him out. You're thinking of criminology? What prompted that?
Well, you've seen all the CSI shows and stuff like that. I mean, I love watching that kind of stuff, but I also have a friend who is a victim's advocate. And the impact that she's made on people really made me want to get into that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you'll have to check out Sheriff Thompson tomorrow. He's coming in to talk about some fascinating subjects and a lot that goes on, whether it's in the police department or even the sheriff's office, how much they interface with folks. And criminology is a big part of that.
Right.
That is very interesting. When you think about how lives change and how you've been able to get out there and try to make a difference for others. I'm sure you're asked on a regular basis to go and talk to folks about this experience. How has that impacted classmates, for instance?
Well, a lot of my classmates didn't know what was going on with me until I had my benefit. And when they found out, they were like, how can a 17-year-old have heart problems?
Yeah.
And it was very weird for all of them at first. But now that they know that I've gone through it, they all get in there and support the American Heart Association.
That's tremendous. So we'll probably see some of them out here volunteering next
at
Saturday
the Heart Ball.
night. Yeah, good. It's getting real close, and of course, a lot of folks. You've helped out in the Heart Balls in the past?
Yes, sir. I've done a little bit of work with the Heart Ball, but mostly I've done more of speeches, letting people know about my heart defect. I wasn't as involved in the American Heart Association. I did little things throughout that.
Right.
But I was more involved in Light the Night until I had my heart defect, and that made me really want to get in there and help the American Heart Association.
Right. You have brothers and sisters, Ashlyn?
Yes, sir.
How does this impact? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I have a younger brother.
A younger brother. How about the impact on him and your parents?
Right. I was really scared at first. I prayed that my brother didn't have the same sort of thing I did.
Right.
So as soon as we went through my surgery, I made my mom get my brother tested, and he's completely healthy.
Really? Yeah.
And it was so funny because I watched his echo compared to mine, and they look so different. And it's weird to watch how a healthy heart works compared to a heart that's been through heart surgery. They look completely different.
Really?
But I was very thankful that he's healthy and my parents are healthy.
Yes. I'm sure they've gotten much more conscious of their own
it's made my family really watch what they're eating and work out and take care of their heart.
And the pediatric cardiologists that you saw out in Houston, as well as other pediatric cardiologists in this area or down in Charleston, have they talked about whether this comes in as a family trait, or are there other family members, your grandparents or otherwise, that have had either the hole in the hearts, or was this just something?
Well, I've had family members who have had heart problems, but they're not the same kind as mine. This is not something you can really get. It's not genetic, so it's just kind of something that happens.
And again, when we just want to get back into that idea of after the surgery and some of the things immediately thereafter for folks who are faced with with surgeries or are thinking about them, whether they're young or old, what are some of the things they're going to have to do immediately after a surgery to help get stronger? Did you have much time there in Houston? Did you have to stay in Houston for a good while?
We were actually in Houston a week before I went for my actual surgery. So I stayed there a week, and they did tests, and then we planned on when we were going to have my surgery and what kind of surgery I was going to have. And then I went back, and we were there for 2 weeks during the actual surgery. And I was out of the hospital in 5 days after my heart surgery, and then I had to stay for my follow-up appointment, and then I was out of there. And it went by quick, and it took me 6 months to fully recover. But after about 3 months, I felt better.
You said 6 months to fully recover, but after 3 months, you knew you were heading in the right direction.
Right.
Earlier you said about when you looked at your brother's echo and your echo. For viewers who aren't familiar with an echo, that's an echocardiogram.
Right.
What exactly is that?
It's an ultrasound of the heart, and they actually take, just like they would for someone who's pregnant, they take a look at the heart, and you can't understand it by looking at the screen, but the more I had them done, the more I kind of understood what I was looking at. And it's very different. The two hearts were completely different.
I bet. You know what? But they don't look different in size. I mean, they're not different. Your brother's younger than you. I mean, the heart is, whether you're, as you said, 81 or 17.
Right.
The heart size.
The way they sounded was different as well, because my heartbeat's a little more irregular than his is, because I have a murmur.
So the murmur will stick with you. Is that something
my whole life?
You'd said oftentimes the holes close up the older you get.
Right.
I think when we saw a pediatric cardiologist for my daughter, and they talked about a very slight hole, they said it wasn't something to worry about until, and they were very blunt about it, until she was child-rearing age.
Right.
That you wouldn't really need to monitor or think about it until she was in an age, and probably something that you contemplated, but the murmur is something that will be there forever.
Forever, right.
Yeah.
It's just that the hole makes an extra sound when your heart beats. And most people, it's not something to worry about unless they say you have other problems.
You know, if there was any message that you wanted to get across to folks, if you just had a minute, or if you were asked that question, let's say at a pageant, if there was the most important thing that you'd want to get across to folks regarding what you went through and how it's impacted you, what would that be, Ashley?
Just to take care of your body. As long as you take care of yourself, then you'll be fine, and eat the right things and exercise. That all makes a big difference.
That's great. Thanks so much for being with us this morning. Thanks for helping out to volunteering for the Heart Ball this year.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Glad you come through it well. Absolutely.
Nice.
Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Ashlyn Clark coming up next. Every 35 seconds, a life is taken from cardiovascular disease. Every minute, someone suffers a stroke, a debilitating stroke. Every 3 minutes, someone dies from a stroke. It's facts and figures like that. It's fundraising opportunities like the 13th Annual American Heart Ball. You've got to think about them. But you heard Ashlyn talk about it. There's still other ways to make donations, whether it's jump rope for heart, a horseback ride-a-thon, a heart walk, making a donation online, calling the Heart Association office at 626-3939 and saying, here's my credit card, I want to make a donation. You know, I go through a series of questions during an interview, and one question I had to ask off camera was, how's your life changed since when you found out about the congenital heart defect there and today? You know, you hear Ashlyn going through all those, but one of those most important aspects is any issues that I hadn't mended with people, I made an effort to mend them. You know, oftentimes it's serious consequences that you face in life that cause you to make changes, and this is one that's obviously in the end worked out for the best. Get out of here Saturday, February 17th. Support the American Heart Association.